my name is Jay and welcome to the channel. Today we're back here in Sannikovland in Planet Zoo. For those of you who are new here, Sannikovland is my current project in Planet Zoo, where we're working on creating this lovely lush tropical zoo in this, amazing tropical environment that we have here. And we are now currently 22 episodes in, and today we're going to be working on our newest habitat, the start of our African section, with our African wild dogs. If that sounds good to you, feel free to hit the subscribe button for more similar content like this, and of course like the video if you do like the video. And with that all out of the way, let's get into things. So, as you guys might have noticed, I did take a little bit of a week off. I just had a little bit of stuff to do in real life, so I thought, you know what, we just hit 600 subscribers. I've been putting out videos pretty much every single week for a good while now, so I thought, you know what, I'll just take a bit of a week off, take some time for myself and kind of recharge and get some other stuff sorted in real life. So I got all that done, feeling quite inspired at the moment to get back to work on Sannikovland, to get back into Planet Zoo, because I have taken a couple of weeks off from Planet Zoo, and I thought, it would be it's a good time for me to kind of get back into it, because I am feeling a lot more inspired to build things and really just get back into the flow of building here. So that's what we're doing today. We're back here and we are starting off our African section with the African wild dogs, as I did just mention. Now these guys are very, very cool, and I had a specific vision in mind for this particular habitat. If you guys didn't know, I do have a video on this channel where I visited Singapore Zoo. I think it was quite early on in the channel's lifespan, probably way back in January or something. And one of the bits in the video was me watching the African wild dogs in that zoo getting fed, because they do have a specific habitat quite similar to what we're building today, in fact, where visitors can actually go up to it, and there's a little bit of a moat separating the visitors from the wild dogs themselves. And zookeepers would actually come up to kind of the guest viewing areas and the guest platforms and essentially chuck meat from a distance and have the wild dogs essentially jump up and grab it, and I thought that was pretty cool. It seemed to be a nice bit of enrichment for the wild dogs and a really good bit of guest interaction as well. So I wanted to aim for something quite similar. In fact, I will get up the video from that Singapore trip and show you exactly what I mean right now, so you can see that. And as you can see, it is very, very cool. I really like this habitat. It is of course much more tropical than you would expect from the natural habitat of an African wild dog. That is of course because Singapore Zoo is set in a tropical environment, very much like Sannikovland is here. So I thought this would be a great habitat to kind of try and emulate to some extent. Not perfectly, I'm not going to build a habitat exactly as it is in real life. I just want to take some inspiration from kind of the style of it. And the main aspects that I wanted to include were the fact that, there's a very low fence and there's a moat separating the animals from the guests. So, it's a little bit more of an intimate experience without compromising safety. And the other aspect I wanted to include was a viewing area for the guests where they could look into the shelter for the African wild dogs. And I thought that would be quite cool as well, because it gives the guests a little bit more of an up close look at what these animals get up to when they go to bed, basically. So that's what we did. But otherwise, the habitat here is quite different from the one you will have seen in that Singapore Zoo video, in the sense that I wanted to make it a lot more naturalistic. For example, in that Singapore Zoo habitat, the African wild dogs have kind of a bit more of an artificial shelter, which looks a bit more like stables or just a regular building. But in this case, I wanted to make it so they had kind of like a cave to enter. So I imagine it would be completely artificial, of course, not a natural cave. But I imagine you would be built out of like foam and silicone and stuff like that, and it would make it look like rocks. And that would be kind of where the dogs would have a little bit of shelter and a little bit of privacy from the guests. So as you can see on screen, what we have been doing, of course, is getting the guest area all ready and in place. And what I did was I just got a little bit of path elevated very slightly from the main path, and then built a moat just along the outside, and then you would have seen me made a little bit of a custom platform using the plaster pieces and a little very low fence using the fence prop pieces and some rope. Again, this is not areas guests can walk on, but it just kind of provides that additional interest. And to be completely honest, like, we haven't had guests in the zoo since like the beginning, because I didn't want to like completely mess up my performance by having 2,000 guests or something constantly in the zoo. Maybe I'll open it at some point, and they'll be able to use all this stuff, but as of now, I'm not 100% taking into account the actual in-game guests, more so what I just think guests would do. So, that's basically that. And you will have seen on screen right now, I am building a bit of a larger rock platform. That's not in the Singapore Zoo habitat, of course. This is just my own idea, and what I wanted to do was have this rock platform be a bit of an elevated area for the wild dogs. So the wild dogs get this sense of security by going up there, and once they're up there, the guests can sort of see them, but it's more of a viewing platform, almost tailored specifically for the animals. So the wild dogs can, of course, get a very good view of their surroundings, and they can always, know what's around them and feel secure that they're not going to be, ambushed. Even obviously it's a zoo, they're not going to get ambushed, but, with animals like this, big predatory animals, or even with prey animals, giving them some sense of elevation will make them feel a little bit more comfortable, because for them, they're at the benefit there. They're at the vantage point where they can see things, but other things cannot see them. So it's just, a little bit of, things to make them a bit more comfortable, basically. And I was quite happy with that. Here now you can see me make a circular viewing shelter for the guests. This is where they'll be able to look into the wild dog shelters. So what you've seen me do is, of course, just make the glass pieces and then rotate them. You will have seen me do similar work in the elephant habitat when we made the elephant houses. So very similar concept to that. You just make one section, duplicate it to the other side, and then rotate it to kind of make this whole thing, line up. And one thing I want to do is create these artificial like rock panels. Of course, I didn't want to make it look supernatural. No, I mean not supernatural. I mean super space natural. That's what I meant. They are meant to look a little bit artificial. So, but I did think they look really cool as these rock panels. So I'm very, very happy with that. You will see me do that a few times. And I'm very, very happy with how this viewing shelter actually turned out. I think it looks pretty cool. And it's a bit more interesting than some of the other viewing shelters we've done in this park. I wanted to kind of go in a more modern direction, a bit more of like over-the-top kind of shelters and viewing areas in this part of the zoo, because I imagine here, this African section that we're about to start building, the South Asian section, all these sections are a lot more new, I imagine, for the zoo, as compared to like the petting zoo that we've been working on the past few episodes. That one, I imagine, was a much older section of the zoo, and here we're getting into the really new stuff, the much more modern stuff. So I am quite excited to build more in this kind of interesting modern style. And as you can see, the basic shell now is pretty much complete, and I was very happy with that. And now we're going to start building the roof. So the roof is quite interesting. I wanted to make it look quite rustic. I didn't want it to look super modern, but at the same time, basically this is kind of my style in Planet Zoo. I've noticed that I do have a bit of a style developing, and I think that's kind of the same for a lot of people. When you play this game long enough and you start building things on a regular basis, you start developing a bit of a unique building style that's very much tailored to your interests. I think you can see this in a lot of Planet Zoo YouTubers. Pretty much all of them have a unique building style. Like, I cannot think of two Planet Zoo YouTubers who are similar. All of them are really unique, and I think that's the case for pretty much all Planet Zoo players. And I think my style has kind of developed to be this kind of mix of rustic and modern architecture. So that's kind of the vibe I go for, and that's kind of what I did here. It is again a mix of that rustic and modern, with this roof being both, made of these wooden sticks, and at the same time have these glass panels as well. So very much a mix of that rustic and modern architecture, and I really like the look of it. As you can see here, we've rotated them in place. Now that section is complete. Now I just needed to make the middle section, And what I did for this was just very quickly put down the that mud circle. That's a really great piece to use. I ended up changing that little base area to be, I think, did I make it glass? No, I used log pieces for this. So these log pieces are great. They're really good for architecture, but I'm gonna try and use them relatively minimally because they actually take up a little bit more processing power, essentially, because they are climbable pieces and animals can climb on them. So the game has to calculate how an animal would climb on them even if there are no animals. So I'm going to try and minimize the use of them, even though I think they're really versatile piece. Here you can just see me very quickly putting in a final little glass panel just to cover up the little hole in the middle, of course, because, you know, if it rains you don't want to get rained on. Very simple glass panel there, and with that the viewing structure is pretty much done. You'll see me add in some furnishings later, just some benches and some viewing screens and stuff like that. But yeah, with that complete, we are going to start working on the habitat itself, and I think this will be a pretty good time for us to dive into today's species profile. So for those of you who are new to the series, for each time we add in a new animal in Sannikovland, we do a little bit of a species profile where we talk a little bit about the animals themselves, because of course this is Planet Zoo and the animals are the stars of this show. So for today's species profile, of course we have the wild dog, and I'll get that up on screen right now. So here's the African wild dog, which is scientifically known as Lycaon pictus. They're also known as the Cape hunting dog or the African painted dog. They do have a few different names. They are native to sub-Saharan Africa. They are, I believe, the largest canine in Africa. And they are very interesting animals. They are unfortunately endangered according to the IUCN, of course due to human encroachment on their habitats, their numbers of prey items dropping because of poaching and stuff like that. But there are conservation efforts in place. Zoos do breed them, which is pretty good. As far as the size goes, they are relatively lightweight. They're about 32 kilograms. I say relatively because I'm comparing them to other, like, you know, dog species. There are much heftier dog species, of course, like wolves and stuff like that. They get up to about 1.5 meters in length, that's including the tail. And of course they live in savanna and scrubland habitats, very arid terrain. They avoid forests and stuff like that, so you do find them in very open areas like this. They get up to about 11 years, which is pretty average for any sort of dog species. That's kind of the average lifespan. And their diet essentially comprises of small to medium mammals, anything from small, like, you know, rabbit-sized animals all the way up to, you know, things like buffalo or antelopes. I think the most common prey, if I'm not mistaken, is in fact the Thompson's gazelles and springboks, but they have been seen pack hunting larger animals. They will of course avoid the really big ones. They're not going to go and hunt a rhino or a hippo or anything like that, but things like buffalo, things like, you know, antelopes, they are a bit more fair game for these guys. Now let's quickly move on to a few interesting facts about the wild dogs. So one cool thing is that they only have 4 toes on each foot, which doesn't sound that strange until you realize that every other dog species has 5, which is pretty interesting. The packs are led by a dominant breeding male and female, so they are led by both an alpha male and an alpha female, which I find quite interesting because usually it's just one or the other. And the packs can vary in size all the way from like 6 all the way up to like 22 or even more individuals, which is pretty crazy because if you see them hunt in a pack, just imagine 22 individual wild dogs hunting something. That would be quite a sight, I think. They've even been seen fighting off lions and hyenas, because lions of course will kill wild dogs if they see them, and hyenas do try and steal their meals all the time. And wild dogs will essentially cooperate very effectively and efficiently with other members of their packs to fend off predators like this. So yeah, that was it for the species profile. Hope you guys learned a little bit about the wild dogs. A couple more really cool facts that I was learning about them while we were doing this, while I was doing the research for this. One cool thing is that they actually give birth underground. They find burrows that have been made by aardvarks, and they go right into the burrow and they give birth there, while the aardvark is gone, obviously. and that kind of protects the pups a little bit before, you know, they have to come out into the world, because of course giving birth is a very vulnerable time for animals like this, and going into a burrow like that is just good protection. Anyways, with that out of the way, I hope you guys did learn something, and you hope you enjoyed that. Species profiles are a lot of fun to do, and I really like, you know, sharing information about animals while also learning about them myself. So back to what's happening on the screen. You may have noticed I built a cave. I always choose to do the species profiles in the worst time, so I can't explain what's going on screen. But basically, in the past few minutes, we have built a cave that is going to be the primary shelter for our African wild dogs. Again, I wanted it to be kind of like in this natural. I love the word naturalistic, because it means something that has been made to look natural but is artificial in design, which is exactly what this cave is. Made out of rocks, essentially, a lot of the flat rock cladding pieces, and I wanted a hole in the top just, you know, for a bit of light. And here you can see me just putting down some bedding, of course, and later in the cinematics you will see the wild dogs using this. They do seem to like this quite a bit. Here you can see me essentially putting down a bunch of enrichment. I like to kind of plan certain areas of the habitat around the enrichment. So I like to put them in like kind of specific locations, like the sprinklers. I like to put them closer to the moats and stuff like that. And feeders and water sections, I would put them in strategic locations, like you can see here with the restraint feeder and the hanging feeder, all very specific locations. Unfortunately, I didn't see them using this at all, just because the zookeepers didn't want to put in any food for some reason. So I don't have cinematics of them using the enrichment items. Besides, I think one of them was using the chew toy, which was super cute. But otherwise, you do see them making quite a bit of use of all this different terrain. You see them actually climb up to the top of this rock. Apologies here, I think I went, like, I know it looks paused, but basically I'm pretty sure I went to get a drink here and I forgot to like stop the recording, so apologies for the like brief like pause here. There we go, I'm back. But basically here, what you can see me do is start making some platforms to get to the top of this really cool rock structure. This is just so the wild dogs have an easier way to get up to the top here. It did take a bit of tweaking to make sure the wild dogs could in fact use all these platforms and get all the way up to the top, but they can do it, and they have been using it quite a lot. So you will see that in the cinematics. One very cool thing I did was I did put in a little bit of a shelter at the top using some of the pieces that you can already find in the construction. I think they were like shop canopy pieces, and you'll see me try them out here basically. I thought about using that, but that wasn't that nice. These sort of pieces, I thought that looks so nice. It's already a pre-built piece, there's not much you needed to here, but I think they fit really, really well, and I was very happy with how that looked. I just put down a bit of bedding underneath this in a second, just so the wild dogs are a little bit happier up there, a little bit more comfortable. And a bit more enrichment just to sorry about that, just so they do feel a bit more inclined to go up to the top. One thing you may have noticed as well is I'm using some of the mossy rock pieces to accent a lot of the rocks. That's something we did throughout the zoo in the South Asian section, in the South American section, because those mossy rocks are really, really excellent. But we did take a little bit of a break from them when we were doing the petting zoo. That was because the petting zoo, again, I wanted it to feel older and more, and I know moss kind of helped with that look, but the mossy rocks just didn't fit there. But I do think it fits a lot more in this section of the zoo. Now you can see me start with foliage. I used loads of elephant grass. I think you actually, if you saw that Singapore Zoo footage from earlier of their African wild dog habitat, I think they use a lot of elephant grass as well. It's quite, or grass that kind of looks like elephant grass essentially. I was very, very pleased with how it looks here. I think it provides a lot of cover for the wild dogs, as well as, you know, just look quite natural and look like it kind of was already there, and it's just kind of been trimmed a little bit. Another piece of foliage I used is the marula tree. I think it looks great. It's a nice little arid looking tree that still fits within this tropical environment. And, you know, I sank some of it to create some of these slightly more, how would I put it, more kind of rougher looking bushes, a little bit more rugged. And I think it turns out pretty good. And you would have noticed I put down a second moat here on the side. This is not meant to be a primary viewing area, but more of a secluded one. So if you look from here, you probably wouldn't get the best view, but you would still get a little bit of a peek into the habitat. Now we are coming towards the tail end of this habitat build. You will see me just build up a little bit of this hill along the back, which is going to be covered in rocks and stuff. I'm not going to finish this hill because I imagine it will be connected to another habitat on the other side. And when we do that, I'll probably finish up with the top of the hill. I do finish up the side facing the wild dogs so that, you know, that looks fine. And of course, it's just a very standard rocky hill. I'm just placing down a lot of quite basic rock work, just using the align to surface tool to kind of get some more interesting positioning and stuff like that. And for the final part of this habitat build, which we are going to start in just a second, this is going to be a staff area, so the staff can access the wild dogs without, you know, being in direct contact with them, and where they could separate out individual wild dogs if they need any medical treatment or anything. So it's going to be a pretty sterile looking building, very like utilitarian as opposed to, you know, fancy looking or anything like that. So it is going to be very blocky, and it's going to serve a very specific function. Essentially, it's just for the zookeepers. It's for them to, you know, basically take care of the wild dogs and not get eaten by them, basically. Fun fact though, I think wild dog can be domesticated, which is very interesting. So there's an additional fun fact for you guys. Here, of course, I'm just covering up the edges so that, you know, it doesn't look too bad from the outside. Because of course, even though this is a staff area, you still want it to look somewhat decent from the outside, so that, you know, guests aren't too like just put off by seeing random very utilitarian buildings. And you will see me just add in a little bit of an extension here, and this extension is going to include an actual keeper hut, which I will put in a second. But first, what I'm going to do is just put in some trim along the outside of this building to just bring in some interest, to make it look a little bit nicer. And this is something I've learned a lot in this park, is that if you want a building to look interesting or nice in any sort of way, just add in a little bit of trim. Any sort of like, you know, lines, using plaster pieces, using wood pieces, anything like that just makes it look a little bit more interesting. So what I've done here is I used the planks first off to make that trim, and then next what you see me do is just put down these East Asian fence pieces to create that kind of look in the bottom. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this building. What you're going to see me do is, it's very basic. I'm just going to add a door, a few, you know, additional pieces, and then make a bit of a layered roof. So while we're doing that, I'll just take some time to talk a little bit about the channel, what I've been up to, what's next for the channel. So of course I did take a little bit of a break from the channel the past week or so, and that was again because I had some stuff in real life to do, and I thought, you know, it'd be nice to take a bit of a break, recharge and all that. I do want to say thank you so much for the 600 subscribers. That is dope. I love that. Thank you so much. Like, it really means a lot, and I'm glad that you guys like the content. I do look forward to, you know, maybe 700, hopefully, who knows. But it's really nice to have you all on board, and I do hope you are gaining a little bit from the videos, maybe getting some inspiration for your own builds, maybe, you know, learning a bit more about the animals, stuff like that. So again, big thank you to all of you. And as for where the channel is going, I do think we are obviously going to continue Sannikovland every week. I don't know if I'll go back to 2 episodes a week, depends on if I have the inspiration. Right now I'm pretty happy with the 1 episode a week format, but if I'm feeling more inspired, I might go back to 2 episodes a week. I am still trying to get videos out on the Wednesday as well as the Saturday. I might do more Townscaper because I just love Townscaper, it's so cute and so fun. So I might do more of that. It's such a fun, like, wholesome game, and I think it does really well on the channel for some reason. Like, both of the past 2 videos got way over 1,000 views, which is kind of ridiculous because they're very low effort videos. Basically, they like don't require as much editing and as much like work as the Planet Zoo videos, of course. But you know, it's just a little fun game, and I'll probably make another couple videos of that. But you know, just we'll see how it goes. I obviously still am absolutely obsessed with Planet Zoo. I'm never gonna not be. It's still like my favorite game. And what I do hope is that I do hope we get a DLC sometime soon, because I am thinking that it is kind of around the time we should be getting one, and if we do get one, my hope is for an Australian pack. I do think that is the most likely, just because we don't have very many we don't have any Australian animals for habitat animals, except for kind of the saltwater crocodile, and that's not even fully Australian. And of course the exhibit animals, we do have plenty of Australian ones there, which I'm not surprised about. There are plenty of animals that would be perfect for exhibit animals in Australia, but I do want more habitat ones. Primarily, a couple ones I would love would be wombats. Wombats are the absolute best. If you've ever seen a wombat, you know they're like the cutest animal ever. So hopefully we will get a wombat in the future. I would also love to see cassowaries. They're not strictly Australian, but they're still within Oceania, so fingers crossed we get one of them as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really think I've got much else to say, except, again, thank you guys so much for the 600. Feel free to join the Discord server if you like. Feel, that's just an area where we can chat and hang out and talk about Planet Zoo and talk about, well, animals and anything like that, basically. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this habitat. I feel like I've got something else to say, but I don't know whether it is. This is why I need to actually note down if I need to say anything, but I don't think it's anything important, so don't worry about that. If we do get new DLC, of course, everything will be covered on the channel. I still don't know if we will, of course. I do think we will, just because it is about the right time, and it has been about nearly 3+ months since the last one. It would be very, very enjoyable if we do get something like that, and of course I will incorporate it immediately into Sannikovland itself. Basically, this is me forgetting when exactly I start the cinematics, and me trying to figure it out without letting you guys know that I'm trying to figure it out, but clearly I totally am telling you, so it's fine. Oh yeah, no, I totally remember what I was supposed to say. I am thinking of potentially starting another channel. It won't be Planet Zoo related or anything like that. It is going to be a channel where I talk about science, because I love science and I want to be a science communicator. So keep an eye out for that. That might be a thing within the next month or two. So, keep an eye out. I will, of course, announce it via this channel. And if any of you are interested in science, biology, and all that, that could be quite a bit of a fun thing for you guys to, watch and enjoy. Now I've said everything I wanted to say. Once again, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video, for supporting the channel. I've said that 10 times now, but, it really does mean the world to me. And, like the video if you like today's video, subscribe of course if you want to see more similar content, and as always I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!